Hey everybody, welcome to the Chan's Logic People Project, where we talk about the things that make people tick and the things that make them awesome. Today I have Jim Crowell back for part 2 of our conversation. Part 1 was a pretty neat conversation where we really talked about the experience people see when they go into gyms, what happens when they go into gyms, what a sales cycle looks like, the ability to nurture and drive people into caring about what you do. And our conversation could have gone on for hours, so we decided that we'd cut it out and do a part 2, so that way you guys are actually going to listen to it. What do you think, Jim?
I think that's a good idea. I think what I've found a lot in the fitness industry is that when you give people consistent hits of beneficial information, they're more likely to implement it. So, I'd much rather we go in chunks and have people see some success from it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, one thing I've noticed since I started doing this project is almost everybody I've talked to, we go an hour or longer. And so we always schedule part 2. So now the People Project is like going to be 18 episodes, and half of them are just going to be part 1 and 2.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, we do a mentor call weekly with our gyms, and we spent an hour on one part of one topic today. So, and when you go down the rabbit hole, it's tough to get out, but it's really good stuff what's down there.
That's true. And you just always hope and pray at the end that you didn't lose the audio, and then you're set.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's dive into, because I know we both have a lot of passion for gymming and passion for building gyms up and all of that. Let's dive into, what do you think the core philosophies of finding who you're supposed to be talking to are? Because I see a lot of people out there saying, well, I just want people who need to lose weight. And I'm like, okay, so it's going to be fundamentally deeper than that. And so you really need to dive deep. And what do you think the first steps are to understanding who you should specifically be targeting and talking to?
Well, the way that I kind of lay it out in our business program is I do what's called the 5 M's, and that's meaning, market, model, management, and money. And I think that for us to be going after the right audience, we have to have all of those pieces in play. So if I want to make good money doing what I'm doing and wow my customer and allow coaches to have careers that they can grow within, I can't just have one thought about my audience, right? So I need to think about how I'm going to serve that audience, i.e. what sort of model I'm going to run. I have to think about the way that I'm going to make my facility get up and running, i.e. cash flow and capital investment. I need to think about which people I resonate well with and which people I really enjoy working with. I need to think about, how I tell them that story to get them excited about what I'm doing. And I'm not trying to confuse somebody. I just think that we need to be careful in just saying, I want to work with weight loss clients, because, well, what's to say that you can't? Maybe the type of gym you're in, maybe it just isn't a need. Obviously, most people are listening to this call are saying, well, it's always a need, but it's not always a need. And I think if you can put everything into context and say, how am I going to run my gym? Who do I love working with? Who do I work with really well? Who can I help solve their challenges really effectively? And how can I get that message out to them? That's where your audience really comes in.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I was reading something that Pepsi was talking about a while back, and it was the idea that the fundamental thing that people want from you is to be a better version of themselves. And so when you watch what these big companies do, they're always showing what the better version of you is. And when you look at that in terms of the fitness world, you have to look at your ideal client and your ideal situation. Where do you want to take people, and what version of them is that? And then how do you speak to the people who aren't quite there yet? And it could be, well, I want to lose weight, or it could be, oh, well, I have autoimmune problems, or my digestion doesn't make sense and it hurts when I eat, or I just want to be happy and healthy and smile every day, and I want to be proud of myself and not feel insecure when I walk into a room.
Yeah, I think too, people, let's say that you have 10 people who all want to lose weight. That's cool. Why do they want to lose weight, though? If you have hyper masculine males that want to lose weight to impress women, and then you have on the other side, you have hyper feminine females that want to lose weight to be a part of a crowd, that could be a horrible dynamic to put on the same gym floor. So you really have to think about a little bit more than the surface level things that they want. And that's, some people might start to go in and say that's a psychographic information. What do they need? What are their challenges, etc. But I like to get under the surface a little bit because, to your point on the best version of themselves, the best version of themselves often doesn't have that much to do with weight loss. And that's where we as coaches and gym owners have to be really helpful to them to help them understand what is underlying all of those thoughts. So when we talk about relationships, through OPEX or whatever, we definitely talk about how you want to understand some of the root issues that they really have to lead them to want to lose weight, because that'll be how they connect to the game plan and how they stay active with it.
Exactly. And it's like the concept of why. So I want to lose weight. Well, what makes you want to lose weight? Well, I have to do this and this and this. Okay, so what makes that important to you? And so I think the way you have to pull this out is, especially when you're talking to people, is you really have to pull out the reasons, and you have to ask why several times to build the relationship up enough to a level to where they feel comfortable telling you that. And then you build out that underlying reason. Oh, well, when I walk into a room, I feel like everybody's judging me. Or when I walk into a room, I just want to smile and have some confidence. And that's what these kind of communities build in these people. And that's why they become so addicted to this process.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you go into the model that you're running, let's say that you have a gym that is dirty, people don't care if they're bleeding in it, they're just working out hard and sweating and just, spitting all over the place, because they're so tired. It's like, yeah, you're probably not going to get that person who's intimidatable, if that's a word.
It is now.
Yeah, right? So you really need to think through, well, if I'm going after somebody who is easily intimidated, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just where they are at the moment. You need to develop an environment that makes them feel secure. So I'm not saying that you have to baby people, far from it. I'm just saying that you have to create an environment for the target audience that you want. So it continues to go back to, you have to think through those different M's so that people understand why you're doing what you're doing and how they're going to benefit from it.
Yeah, that's huge. I see a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to target moms with their new little kids because that's the client I want to speak to." But then when you look inside their gym, it's death metal and skulls on the walls and red and black paint everywhere. I'm like, well, if it kind of isn't going to cater to the person you just talked to me about. And it all stems into that culture as well. People need to feel comfortable when they walk in. They need to feel comfortable when they see pictures, and they need to feel comfortable when they look at the dynamics that are going to happen. And if you break that comfort level anyway, or at any point, it puts people into a situation where they feel not okay. And when people feel not okay, they feel insecure. And when they feel insecure, they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I hear some folks in the fitness industry who are essentially angry at brands like Orange Theory, because Orange Theory is growing like a weed and they've got a bunch of clients, and not every, but a number of studios look to be making money, and they're upset about that. And I just look at Orange Theory and I see, well, it looks the same everywhere. And the reason that that's so powerful is because that if you walk into any Orange Theory anywhere, you're going to get the same experience, and that is good. There's too many gym owners that think you have to give these massively different experiences. It's if you offer a great service as a coach, and that coaching service is creative, i.e. you're giving people interesting things that benefit them for where they are in the moment, that's the key. But these gym owners are thinking, well, I've got to be so, different than the gym, like a CrossFit gym across the street or something like that. Well, people want to understand what they're going to get. So you need to you need to give the best service you possibly can, given the model that you're in. So I think a lot of CrossFit gyms right now are trying to differentiate away from CrossFit, and that's just very interesting to me because people know what CrossFit is, and that's why they came in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just an interesting concept, so why even keep CrossFit on the door? Well, people keep it on the door because it brings clients in. But then they say they're doing something else, and I'm saying, well, what? What does that even mean? So it's just interesting to me to think that through, because the branding of CrossFit is bringing clients in, but they don't want to do CrossFit. So it's just an interesting scenario.
Yeah, I find that incredibly interesting to think about. So people tend to think that CrossFit's creating problems associated with what's going on in their business, but CrossFit is the thing driving the leads into their business, and then they differentiate, or they think they're differentiating by rebranding, and they lose all their leads if they get rid of the name and they realize that they have to go in and fight with the overall fitness dynamic and the big fitness market. And it's always this scenario where if I switch and I move myself, am I just trying to put a Band-Aid on an overall problem and trying to fix something that's not quite fixed, that's broken, by just changing the name or differentiating myself from what people know? And then if you have CrossFit on your name and you start advertising to it and people opt in and go in and do all that, and then they come in and you're like, oh, well, we don't use that name anymore. That creates that not okay environment. Well, what do you mean? I came in here because I kind of wanted to try CrossFit.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's obviously we have a different view than a group intense model at OPEX, right? We believe that coaches should give every client their own unique program at all times. We definitely believe that there should be a group training environment, in that people are doing their own workouts in a group, environment with a coach on the floor. But everybody should do their own program because that's what they need. So that's our opinion. But if I go back to the CrossFit side of things, my question is if they know that CrossFit's such a powerful marketing tool, then why don't they just be the best CrossFit possible? So if they don't want to be CrossFit, then they have to realize that they need to market. They need to create a brand around it, because they're leveraging a brand that they're then saying they don't agree with. And the problem behind that is that they lose trust instantaneously, because they're marketing saying they're one thing and then they're trying to dupe the person to say that they're another. That's crazy in my mind.
Yeah, it eliminates the congruency factor. It's if I'm saying one thing and then you see another, now you're not going to trust me, and then I'm going to create this perpetual cycle of problems. And if you're all in, if you're CrossFit and you want to be all in with it, use CrossFit HQ's material, share all their stuff. You need to be their biggest cheerleader, because you're essentially depending on what they're doing to raise and develop and build what you're doing. But if you're not in on that, it's a point to where you need to eliminate it entirely, because if you start saying bad things about it, or if you say all gyms are different, they do this, you create that application to where people don't really understand what's going on.
Right.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and if they don't understand, they're never going to opt in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we can all agree that CrossFit built a massive brand. People understand what CrossFit is, and I think a lot of gym owners, mainly because they don't market very much, they don't realize how important having a known entity is in a brand. It's so important. So when these gyms try to rebrand, what they recognize is that they've never actually marketed, and people don't know them as anything but CrossFit. So then they try to lever the CrossFit name, but then immediately hoodwink somebody and say, oh, well, we're different than those guys. Oh, okay, well, then why do you have it on your door? And so somebody who's coming into that model is confused. That doesn't mean that they don't make a sale. I'm not saying that, but it is a little bit lacking in trust when a client walks in and immediately is sold something different than what they were advertised about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such murky waters. There's so many people doing so many different things, trying to hide the fact that they're an affiliate, or hide the fact that they're still part of the movement. And I always tell people it comes down to a cost-benefit analysis. Is the brand driving you enough business to survive and thrive? Yes, okay, keep it. No, okay, then you need to get rid of it entirely and not try to fake the funk.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and why have so many businesses gotten up and running in the last 5 years? Because this is a massive problem in the fitness industry. I'm not just saying CrossFit. I'm saying that most gym owners have no idea how to market and sell. So that is an opening in the market for business, systems and processes and smart people to create solid systems to help those gyms. It's just interesting to me that so many people are trying to take a name off a door that got them all these clients, and now all of a sudden they're trying to pull the hoodwink. It's unfortunate, because that says that there's either a marketing problem or an oversaturation problem or something, but they're still using the name but then saying there's something different. I don't think that's a long-term recipe for success.
Yeah, definitely not. And it comes down to, you can do one of two things. Are you going to depend on the brand of CrossFit to continue to drive your business? And if that's going well, then that's great. Go all in. Or do you want to shift gears and develop your own brand, put some money behind it, and build your own movement around what you're doing? Then shift gears and go that way. But like you're saying, a lot of people don't understand because they just open gyms out of passion usually to get out of what they hated doing or to get into something they love doing. And then they get into this and they realized, oh, I have to have a marketing budget. I have to learn how to run Facebook ads. I have to learn how to do business development. I have to learn how to get some corporate programs. And I don't know how to do any of these things because it's just me. And I thought I could just open up and have clients.
Yeah, I mean, our CCP course is pretty well known in the functional fitness world at this point, and our gym owners at this point have to go through that, and then we put them through a 6-month business accelerator program to teach them not only how to run our model, but also how to do business. And then they have a mentor one-to-one perpetually. So right when they become a gym, they have a one-to-one piece and a group education piece. And the reason is because we know that they need the education. We know that they need to be up-leveled in how they understand what they're doing. And that takes time, So to our first comment when we got on the air, it's much better to be able to work with somebody consistently because those ideas will sink in. And, I have massive, massive empathy for gym owners who want to do the right thing. They're just trying to figure out how to keep winning. But the trouble is that they're kind of slowly just eroding the foundation that they either have or don't have in their business by trying to be something that they're not. And I just don't think that that's a long-term winning proposition.
Yeah, no, it gets them to the point to where they either hate the brand and they hate what they're doing, and then it just leads to burnout and then eventually failure if you don't have that cohesive unit organized. And I think that's why it's amazing to have some sort of, at least a mentor, someone to talk to who's up, at least outside of the industry or knows the industry from the top level down, because then they can talk to you about, all right, here's what we're doing, here's why you're doing it, here's what I told you to do last week, did you actually do it? No. Okay, what were you doing? And you can drive them forward. And if you have organized courses like you guys do, it really helps, because then you go, here's our first course, here's our basics, here's our long-term course, and now I'm going to stick you with one person and a group of people. Now you've got an accountability partner and an accountability group, and we're going to make sure that you do what you need to do.
Yep, it's just been beneficial to see the continued up-leveling of different types of gym owners. So when we started OPEX Gyms, a couple of years ago, we were trying to figure out just as much as they were, because we put together this process, we put together this gym style, we put together this brand, and what we've learned is how different everybody is, how different they are in their life cycle as gym owners and coaches. And so it's really been a fun process to put together an education platform that they can start to understand. But when they start seeing why they're winning, that's when it sinks in, or why they're getting kicked in the teeth. That's when it starts to sink in. But somebody needs to be there to help them understand it. I mean, you know that better than most anybody, right? Is when you're helping people to up-level their gyms, they need to experience some pain and they need to experience some goodness for those ideas to sink in.
Exactly. You got to experience a little bit of that loss feeling, like, what am I going to do? And then you got to taste that win. Oh man, this is what it feels like to actually succeed and do well, or at least actually get a bite of it. And then they're all in and they're ready to go and hit the ground running. And you get over that I'm burnt out and I don't know if I could do this any longer mentality and move into the, okay, we can make this work. And it's a process of either you got to change what you're doing, you got to understand your systems, and you got to fix the problems in execution that are happening. Like, what am I not doing and what am I avoiding?
Yep, exactly. And the thing, I mean, a lot of gym owners need to know that building a business is not, you don't do it for 3 months and then you're good, right? You do it for 3 months and then you compound it and you become better 3 months after that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, for somebody, I think it's important for me to say that gym owners need to realize that more and more, whether they're franchises or licenses or affiliates or whatever, more and more solid gyms are popping up every day. And they're not winning only on coaching. They're winning on sometimes coaching and business, sometimes they're winning entirely on business. And so if you're not willing to play in that field, you're going to get slaughtered at some point. And it's unfortunate, but that's what's happening because there's more and more micro gym models that are running tightly, that have good process, that have good cash flow and margins. And gym owners who did it out of a passion project, they're now not young enough for people to just give them the benefit of the doubt. They've been around long enough where they need their facility to get cleaned up. They need their coaches to be more polished. They need to have longer term results for their clients. If you can't produce that, you're going to get taken out because you don't have the marketing budget or you don't have the facility or style or big brand behind you that these other businesses have. So where it gets really important is that a coach has to understand what brand they're with so that they can drive that hard. If they're on their own, great. Realize it and build your own brand. It's going to be challenging, but at least you're driving your own ship. But otherwise, get behind your brand and roll, because I think that that's going to be the most beneficial.
Oh yeah, that's it. It's what do I need to do? Well, I need to build my brand and I need to make sure that it's congruent across the board, and I need to make sure that people are able to recognize it, spot it, and trust it almost immediately, especially in my local market. I want to be the thing people think about when they think of what I'm trying to look for and what I'm shooting for. So they need to be able to see my Facebook content that drives people eventually into a website, that drives people to emails, and then drives them into your facility. And all those things are congruent and have the people they're going to see, the pictures they're going to see, all the opportunities they're going to experience inside the place, and the culture and personality that they're going to experience as well. And if all those are congruent, they're used to seeing that kind of thing, that's when you ultimately build that brand that's going to be scalable, trustworthy. I was going to say trustable. I don't know if that's a word.
I would have gone for it.
Yeah, it is now. And that's when you get in that position where people really recognize and understanding what's happened, and there's no friction points across the board. They know what's going on. Like in our gym, there's a golden doodle that stays there because she's hypoallergenic and doesn't bite anybody. But it's built into a position where everybody recognizes that dog and everybody understands that dog's position and what it's doing. And if it doesn't show up, people genuinely get upset.
Yeah, I think that's what the gym owner has to make decisions on. There are some gyms that no chance a dog could be in the facility. And you know what? That's the brand.
Exactly.
And there's other gyms where they have gym dogs and people love it. And that goes to your question of, well, how do you choose the right audience? Well, if you don't know what you want in your gym, you're never going to pick the right audience.
Exactly. It comes down to what is that the book. It starts with why. What is my why? Why am I doing this? Why am I pushing towards this position? Who am I talking to? And what is ultimately going to make me happy in doing this experience? And essentially what we see in a lot of gyms is the brand is a direct representation of the personality of the owner or founders.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we are not building Nike micro gyms. And what I mean by that is we don't have huge brands that we're trying to create in a local fitness facility. That's a losing battle. What you're trying to create is an outstanding facility for your local audience to benefit from. If OPEX is all about an optimum experience, then we need to have every gym create that. We don't want them to create more, and I'm not trying to hold them back. I'm saying if they don't get locked and loaded on the right brand for them in their area for an OPEX facility, they will fail. And they need to know that. So when they start to build out those key differentiators versus other gyms in their areas, it's going to be based, for an OPEX gym, I should say, it's going to be based around some level of coaching and relationship, because that's the big feature and benefit set that OPEX gyms have. It is not going to be for our gym owners to win for dollars per square foot, because they're not going to beat something like Orange Theory, because an Orange Theory is designed to maximize dollars per square foot. So we just have to be careful on what we are trying to project, how we're trying to succeed, which clients we're trying to bring in, back to your point, because we need to do it for the right reasons for ourselves.
Exactly. And when you think about the concepts that a lot of this can come back to, it comes down to the idea of kindness priming. How can I prime people to smile before they walk in the door? And how can I prime people to be so excited and giddy about it they can't help but talk to everybody, share pictures, show what's going on, tag the gym in their Instagram accounts, and do all these things that show that we built that for lack of a better term, cult-like environment inside of our facilities where people truly and genuinely enjoy being there. They're happy before they walk in, and they want to go back again and again and again. And this isn't just in the first 6 months. This is something that continues to go and continues progressing for these people, and that never wanes down.
Exactly. Yep. That's very well said. You've got to get people, you have to give people a consistent experience forever. All of us gym going people, we can be elitist about not eating at places like McDonald's and everything, and I get it, right? That's not the type of food we want. But McDonald's continues to make billions of dollars every year because people know what they're going to get.
Exactly.
It doesn't need to be more complex than that, right? Like how often, and yes, every once in a while you hear something bad about McDonald's, but generally you're not too often hearing about people getting E. coli from McDonald's.
No, and look at their track record, billions and billions served and very few problems or issues.
Right. So, we can say that we don't want that kind of food, but we also, we as a society, we want cheaper food. We want it to be given to us faster. We want, fewer and fewer interactions, and we never want to get sick in the moment. It's like that is the brand that McDonald's has chosen to build. Nothing wrong with that. So when McDonald's went away from burgers only, however many years ago, that started to open up the market for burger brands because McDonald's wasn't known as only burgers anymore. So it's, In-N-Out has taken that lead and just run with it. And what does In-N-Out do? Burgers. They're not trying to do 50,000 things. They're just serving burgers, right? So there's always an opportunity based on how large brands are building, their popularity. So we go to a fitness model, right? Well, there was Globo gyms forever, and people recognized that, there were these classes going on in Globo gyms, and people kind of had these little communities, and there was something better than just being in a Globo gym. Welcome to the micro gym. And I get that there's been strength and conditioning for a long time, weightlifting for a long time, but this explosion in group classes, and I mean 50 different kinds of group classes, is really within the last 20 years, I'd say.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't
definitely
see that going anywhere. I think that's a massive trend that's going to continue to go. But the key is going to be which brands continue to survive and thrive, or how do they change and pivot over time to stay going? Because one might have looked at Curves, 20 years ago and said, oh, man, these guys are crushing. And then you would have blinked your eyes and all of them were out of business.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy, right? So we have to look at the big picture trends and ask ourselves, why do businesses stay in play? Why do they go out of business? Why do trends come and go? How do we get on the right trend? How do we get off it if it's the right play to make? It's just, I'm fascinated by it. You can just hear it in my voice. But I think that a gym owner has to realize that over time, they better evolve. They have to continue to improve. I'm not saying they have to change their brand per se, but they have to improve. Because doing the exact same thing for 40 years in fitness, you better be the best in the world if you want to survive doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's a chase excellence, chase mastery in what you're doing, and continually adjust it, make it better, and fix your processes. And when you look at how these colossal brands, even CrossFit, how the way they started, it was they created a movement around their brand and then turned that movement into something that they could actually market and sell. And CrossFit originally, I remember back in the day, we would just go to CrossFit.com, post our workout results, and then we'd go on YouTube and try to figure out what we were supposed to do in the gym that day. Because maybe there wasn't even YouTube at this point, but there was no way to learn or understand. There were no coaches. There weren't really courses, but all we were excited about was the fact that we could share what we were doing with people around the world. And arguably, you could say that was one of the first real social networking experiences. I still remember everybody's names on those forums.
Oh, yeah. No, I think they did it brilliantly. I think one of the things, that us business guys can appreciate too is that CrossFit's original business model was about the cheapest possible way to open a gym. If you think about it, I want to own a gym, I want to be in this industry, how do I do it? You need 48 hours, to go learn this stuff. You need $1,000 to do it, and then if you could put together $3,000 for some old dirty equipment in your garage, you were an affiliate.
Yeah, and I know, basketball filled with cement.
yeah, and some people today look at that like, oh my God, how is that possible? And then I look back at it and go, I think that's beautiful, because that was an organic ability to become an entrepreneur. Now, the thing that happened, in my opinion, is that people didn't learn what it took to survive in that arena as the cost structure got bigger. So now it's more expensive, and if you don't have a good pipeline of marketing, it's saturated enough where you're not getting as many leads today as you were 3 years ago. That's not CrossFit's fault, right? That's just a lot more gyms. So, it's not CrossFit's fault that people aren't marketing,
Yeah, exactly. And and there's so many opportunities to learn. Just a lot of people, I don't think they execute on it because they're afraid of it. And we don't like to do things we don't like to do. So then when marketing comes up, so I don't know how to run Facebook ads.
Nope. Exactly. And that's unfortunately one of the reasons why so many garbage, concepts or internet scams or whatever are coming up in the fitness arena right now, because people don't know the answer and they're just trying to figure out how to win. So they're getting preyed on, unfortunately, in certain situations.
Oh, I totally agree. I see it as, and this is something I was thinking about lately, is people trying to differentiate away from CrossFit to do something that sets them apart, but then go back into one of these things that puts them in the same position where they're doing the same thing as everyone else. It's a full circle problem.
Yeah. The way that I kind of look at this at the end of the day is a gym owner has to realize that they are a business owner. So either they need to do things that an entrepreneur, if that's the word you want to use, or at least a business owner would do, or they need to figure out how they can acquire somebody or a company to help them do those things. The problem is that they're choosing the latter more times than not right now, and those companies are not the right ones for them. And they're getting slaughtered in ad spend for no correct outcome of what would lead to good leads in the gym. And I'm not trying to signal anybody out on this. There's lots of great companies helping people, but there's too many that are just hammering these local gym owners because the gym owner doesn't know the difference.
Oh yeah, and you see it in these Facebook ads all the time because everybody's a Facebook marketer now. Is learn this one trick I did to generate $5 million in revenue, and I'm like, first of all, you're in a micro gym. That one trick probably didn't happen, and all you're doing is preying on people. So you can work with them a little bit, get some money, and then they can fall off track and do it again, and they get in this perpetual cycle of failure. So you try something, fail, try something else, fail, try something else, fail, until the gym owner just gives up and says nothing works. But they didn't find the right people, and they got preyed on by the wrong people.
Yep, it's unfortunate, and I'll make a statement that's going to rattle some skulls here. But there's a lot of gym owners that have no business being in business. And if that challenges somebody to go learn business and you want to be upset with me for it, that's okay with me, because you'll go learn business and have more success. But the trouble is that there's more and more competition that are being taught business systems, and if you don't know them, you're in trouble.
Exactly, and it's totally true. If you open this thing on a passion, but you didn't understand that you needed to have business systems, you didn't need to understand that you would need to be organized and actually write things down and train and replicate staff. And if you find that terrifying, this is definitely not going to be the right thing for you to do, because this is this whole thing's a people project. It's how can I leverage people in the right way to continue getting people to like me, both customers and staff.
Yeah, and some passionate coaches became outstanding business owners. So the pathway is there to make yourself into, a high-level person in this arena, but you got to work for it. You got to take the steps and learn how to do it.
Yeah, and regardless of what you see on those Facebook ads, there's no one trick that's going to generate all those pains and make all those pains go away. And so if you see those things, I would recommend avoiding them and find something that's going to give you a long-term solution. Find one of the really good mentoring groups that can say, this is where we're going to start and this is where we're going to be 2 years from now, because this shouldn't be a one-trick pony. It should be a long-term game and a long-term commitment, and you should be ready to put in the work. It's not easy, and it's not going to happen fast. It's going to be a long, slow process, and sometimes it's a roller coaster. You get ups and you get downs. Sometimes I'm doing great, and then all of a sudden, like, wow, that was stupid.
Oh yeah, I think one of the things that our mentors, we often talk about, and they're so good at this, our OPEX Gyms mentors, they always talk about how the brand starts with the coach and the service. And for a micro gym model, particularly one that is coaching based, right? We're not talking about something that has no real touch point to a coach, or a group class that has 100 people with one instructor. We're talking a coaching based model. If you don't create the consistency of quality of service day in and day out, program in, program out, you're never going to be able to authentically show that in your branding, whether that's in person with conversations or through social media or on your website. You have to start there, because what you really want in order to get, a groundswell effect, or, more and more organic conversation from other people about your business in a positive way, that will always begin from the experiences that people have had inside of your facility. So your service has to be rock solid.
Exactly. And I find a lot of the time, the more you get your coaches excited and the more the coaches work closely with the clients, the more likely it is you're going to develop that atmosphere where everybody's excited and pumped and they really feel like they're getting that high level of service developed. And when you're in the micro gym world, if you don't want to compete on price, which you shouldn't, you need to learn how to compete on value, and you need to learn how to compete on offering a high-end service or a high-level service that really makes people think, wow, I'm getting a lot for what I'm paying here. And if those coaches are working one-on-one, if the coaches are designing their programs and making sure they're always okay, checking in with them, texting them if they don't see them for a little while, then that really develops that strong relationship to where the client will say, hey, he doesn't let me miss a day. They're always on me. They make sure I get what I pay for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we always talk about, the big three stakeholders. So, the coach, the client, and the owner have to win. If all three of them don't win, how in the world do you think you've got a long-term solution here? Now, granted, if your definition of success is cash, well, the coach always loses in that scenario, unfortunately. Because you're going to just try to cut margins so low that a coach just can't grow a career there. So they're in for a year or two and then they're out. Or they just do it as a side project, which makes it a lot harder to manage. So our belief system is that you take care of the coach as well as you take care of the client and the owner, and the whole system will succeed for a much longer period of time, which what we're really going after is client lifetime value, not just dollars per square foot or how many people can fit within the gym's square footage. I've got no issue with that model if that's what you've defined as successful. It's just not what we at OPEX would say is, the main way of creating a quality environment that can succeed for a local gym owner.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. The better you take care of your coaches, the more likely it is they're going to stick around, and the more likely it is that all the clients that they manage and maintain are going to stick around as well and have a great experience. And part of taking care of these coaches is providing them with a lifestyle they can be happy with. I should be able to do this thing, grow progressively, buy a car, buy a house eventually, live my dream, and not have to work 38 jobs. And right. That's not the idea of a professional coach. If I'm working 3 jobs to make the gym work, what do you do? Well, I wake up and I go to the gym, and that's my job, and I make exactly what I want to be happy and survive, and not just survive, but thrive.
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Yep, you have to. I don't see that being an option if you want to be in business for a long period of time. You don't have a choice. You have to do it.
Exactly. And if you don't, go back to the Globo Gym model, because that's how they're going to survive and thrive. It's churn and burn. But we don't have those capabilities because we don't have the budgets, we don't have the client base, and we just don't have the capabilities to do the churn model or the grinder model.
Yeah, we don't have the structure of, I got to be careful on how I say this because I'll go deep down a rabbit hole. But, if you look at, let's go with Lifetime Fitness or something like that, what we forget is that even though they're massively beautiful facilities, much of what's inside of a Lifetime gym is on the balance sheet, not so much a monthly expense. So what they do is they have a massive capital infusion up front to buy all the equipment to get the facility. And, some of these models are buying the dirt or buying the real estate, not all of them. But they create a model that, per square foot becomes awfully cheap to run. And because they're so large, they can put so many clients in that they actually create pretty good margins. And I'm saying margin in terms of cash, not necessarily percentage. It depends on the model. But in a micro gym, you have to create margin percentage because you don't have enough space to have, 20,000, members that come once a month or, 0.25 times a month. Your clients are coming in, I don't know, anywhere from 1 to 5 times a week. You don't have enough space to manage all of them effectively and still make margin. So that is a different model, and we have to not think that that's what we're doing here. Micro gym owners, they're going to live and die on relationships, in my opinion. If you don't have relationships, you're not going to stay open for too long.
Oh yeah, 100%. And what do relationships do ultimately for you? They drive referrals, and they drive people to stick around. So we get retention plus referrals. The two top parameters are going to give us people who are actually going to sign up when they walk in the door, and then our high lifetime client value. So if those two things are maximized by building that relationship and essentially taking care of people, you're going to have something that builds that cult-like atmosphere where everybody sticks around, everybody talks about it, and everybody wants to go there.
Yeah, exactly. And I often talk to gym owners who are convinced that Facebook ads are going to be what does it for them. Just convinced. And hey, don't get me wrong, Facebook ads can be very beneficial. But I often ask them, I say, how many referrals did you get last month? On 100 clients, they'll say, well, we got a couple referrals. And then I'll ask them, well, imagine if you got 2 more referrals this month and then didn't have the spend on Facebook and you still had the same number of clients that you did, that you would have had. They don't look at the dollar, amount that they're spending on these quote unquote leads to get them into the gym as compared to the free, way of bringing in referrals. I mean, referrals are beautiful because they're cheap. They don't cost you anything outside of the job that you're supposed to do. So if you're a gym owner and you can manage your people to create great relationships that yield referrals, you're going to bring new clients in much more cheaply. So your lifetime value over your client acquisition costs gets so much sexier in that moment. But gym owners don't necessarily look at it that way. They just hope they get a referral here and there, and then they keep spending money, in digital platforms or with these Facebook marketers or whatever. And they're wondering why their gyms aren't growing because it's costly. Like, they're not optimizing Facebook; they're just spending.
Exactly. And I always talk about this idea that if you depend on one thing, you're essentially setting yourself up to fail down the road. You need to have a spider web of business organized. And when we look at it, you talk to the gym owners, hey, how do you maximize the referrals? Then you ask them, what are you doing? Oh, well, I just hope they tell people. Oh, are you asking them? No. Okay, well, let's build some systems around asking people to do what you want them to do, because they'll do it. They just don't usually recognize that you need it.
Yep. I agree. I think, there's for our gyms, we often talk about, getting a base model of client acquisition up and running, and making sure you understand the effectiveness or lack thereof of it, and then growing on top of that. And we are actually not saying to go spend a bunch of money on Facebook initially. We're saying that comes after you have some brand equity built up, some awareness in your community. Some people around you and have built some relationships. You've posted organically about your brand and about what you're doing and some of the successes that you're seeing in the gym. When you have that going, then your ads are more potent, and so people start spending money before they even know what their brand is. And so they just spend money without thinking about how they're going to even say the message, and so they're not having any success bringing people in because they're not saying anything. They're just spending money and posting nothing.
That's huge, and it's so true. When I talk to people about what they're doing, they're like, well, can you just give me a Facebook ad to drive some leads? I tell them, well, no, I kind of feel that you need to build a relationship first. We need to show people what we're all about, and we need to give, and then we can go and ask them to do stuff down the road. And that's ultimately what you could do with just, if you understood how it worked, retargeting a little bit. So I put out a bunch of great content. Every day I have something that goes out that just gives you a ton of value, and I make sure that I have it going to my local area. My current clients are sharing it. My coaches are sharing it. I have an internal Facebook group or whatever, and I'm sharing it via email, so that way everybody's exposed to it. And then once that's been going for a month or so, then you can say, okay, now let's run an ad that says, hey, you've seen all our content, you love Joe, Jane, and now you're going to meet Tommy when you walk in the gym. Come see us, or something like that. Then they have that recognition and awareness built up, and they're like, you know what, I did watch that stuff. These guys are pretty cool.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
And that's the concept of just build a relationship, make people care about you.
Easy peasy. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, just do that.
Yeah,
Simple.
I think when people kind of, can take a look inside of their gyms and ask themselves, of these 50 people, who do I actually have a relationship with? And the people that you don't, not always, but they're often the people who just kind of fade away and you don't really realize what happened to them. And I would argue that that's not actually the service that's going to lead more and more referrals and keep people for a longer period of time.
No, yeah, I would agree with that. It's if I have someone that I think isn't really engaged or isn't paying attention, I need to do something to either make that person incredibly happy or adjust my whole process so I'm aware of that kind of stuff. And if that's happening, and say, hey, Jim, I noticed you haven't been interacting with us as much. I want to take you out and let's have some coffee and talk about what you're doing and what your goals are and see if we can help you get a little bit better at what you're doing or make more progress or do whatever it is that you need to do. And just little acts like that. Send them a handwritten card. Hey, thanks for being part of the gym. We really appreciate you. Stuff, just little things. Reach out to them, talk to them, interact with them more. If they don't interact with you, you reach out and do it for them. And if you do that kind of stuff, you're top of mind all the time, and they're much more likely to actually feel like you do care about them. And like, hey, he took me to coffee for no reason the other day. He paid for my coffee. He took me to lunch. They paid for my food. Or he sent me a really cool article that I saw that I was talking about in the gym. And so I really feel like they do care about me because they reach out like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different types of gyms where that can actually be challenging for a coach to do. So I'll take the coffee example. Most coaches, they see how little they're getting paid per hour, and they ask themselves, well, how in the world can I go out for coffee, at X number of dollars per hour that I'm actually not going to get paid more for? The trouble with most of these business models is that there isn't an ability to do something like that. And I'm just saying some positive action, towards a client outside of just being a coach on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure that I say, I love the idea of offering additional value to your clients, but there does need to be value to the coach as well as value to the system for that to be baked in consistently, because what you don't want to see is a coach who accidentally or purposely gives additional value or basically, shows preferential treatment to a couple clients, because that pisses off the rest of the membership.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just got to be such a good process, to even institute something like going out and getting coffee. I know it sounds kind of, I'm agreeing with you, but we might be confusing people out there, but you have to build something like that into your model. So either the price point needs to go up, which means you have to provide more value to every client to yield that price point, or the coach has to be compensated for it in some capacity, because otherwise they're doing work for free, which sucks for them in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. And that's thinking that mindset of taking care of all three subsets. And so you have to say, I want my clients taken care of, but fundamentally I need to take care of my coaches at the same time. So how do I make sure the coaches are incentivized to keep doing this thing? And you can attach the coaches' pay to a percentage of the clients and what their membership looks like. So they're always incentivized to do that. Or you can do culture bonuses or whatever way you want to organize it. You just have to make sure that what you put together doesn't put the coach in a poor position. You don't want to say, hey man, I know I'm paying you $20 a class, but you think you could go out and like have coffee with 300 people? And the coach is going to say, well, I think I hate myself, so I'm going to quit.
Yeah, exactly. And that, just for us, that's where we always go back to the individual coach-client relationship is, when a coach is actually working with somebody that closely, then they understand where the relationship is at all points, because they have so many touch points on the client. It's when you kind of just see somebody here and there, you don't really know what's going on. So if you're not going to go out with go get coffee with every client, well, who gets the tap on the shoulder to go get coffee? I mean, that's a tough one for a coach or a gym owner to go through when you're kind of just guessing. So we like the idea of a coach working directly with a client just because they always understand where that client sits.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So hopefully the idea is that you don't have to go get coffee. You do it because you want to, right?
Yeah.
Because the client's having a good time. You just want to go shoot the shit for a few minutes. But it's just got to be it's got to be consistent and fair across the board, because I've just seen too many instances where members actually get frustrated because they feel like they're not being paid attention to when the gym owner was trying to do something nice, for a client just because they needed to.
Yeah, totally.
Catch-22.
Yeah, and think about that. You have to make sure that what you're doing, what you're building, what you're organizing works for everybody. You can't just do it to 2 or 3 people, because like you're saying, you'll build a clique, and then you'll get really upset people, and they'll leave, and they'll talk bad about cliques and all that. And so I follow the same philosophy of attaching a coach to a client. So that coach is responsible for the well-being and the happiness and the health of that client. And so they're always interacting. They're going back and forth. They're compensated for that purpose and fact in addition to what their regular coaching compensation is. And so they consistently and constantly build relationships and make really good friends with these people. And so the coaches will go out and do whiskey tastings for fun. The coach will go out and have coffee with them. The coach will meet and hang out with them. And the coach will go to kids' sporting events and hang out and stuff like that. And they do it because they want to, and in addition to the fact that they're incentivized, but they're also part of that relationship now, and they're part of that dynamic, and they're part of that person's life.
Yeah, exactly. You can't say it enough. I mean, coaches and owners so often mean so well. They just want to do what's right. They just want to help their clients. And they're not quite sure how to do it from a business standpoint the most effectively. So to your point, you have to build something that scales, and I don't mean scales cash-wise, I mean scales procedurally.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that, that's where you get yourself in trouble by accidentally, getting yourself into that catch-22 situation, and then all of a sudden clients are on your back, and now everybody wants coffee, and not only can you not afford it, but you don't have the time. So it's a tough situation, but when you take a step back and look at your whole system and ask, can I do this for everybody? If the answer is blatantly no, you just have to be careful when you're making those calls. If you're not getting some sort of compensation in your model for it, you got to be careful, because either you're going to take a huge time hit or your coach is going to take a huge time hit, and that's tough over a career to just keep giving people things for free when they should be paying some amount of value for it.
Definitely. And if you do that, you're going to hate yourself, and you're going to hate everyone around you, and you don't want to build that kind of animosity amongst yourself. And I always say, when you're building and organizing these things and you want to see if it scales or if it's going to go to the next level, just put it into strategic phases of planning. So discovery phase, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What could go wrong? How does it scale? Who's involved? What's the budget? And then, okay, next is planning phase. All right, now that we've decided it's a viable opportunity, we need to plan this thing out. How does it look now? How does it look 6 months from now? How does it look a year from now? And then execution phase. It might be a 1 day or it might be a full year execution, but how do I actually execute? What do I do when everything goes wrong? And then post-execution analysis. We did it. What went well? What didn't go well? And how do we readapt, reevaluate, and modify it so it's better next time?
Yep, agreed. Without a doubt, you just keep improving. That's so important.
That's it. Well, this has been another great episode. We always seem to go at least an hour.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it. We could just go back and forth for days.
Yeah, we're just going to have conversations with Chandler and Jim later. That's all it's going to be able to do on Facebook Live. Just listen to whatever we have to talk about for the week.
Exactly. That'd be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for coming on again. For round 2, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Yeah, my email is just jim@opexfit.com. I love giving that out. And then I'm just Jim Crowell, Crowell, on Instagram and Facebook. And then our website is opexfit.com.
Perfect. I think OPEX has a lot of cool things, a lot of amazing things going on. Jim's a great guy, so you guys should check him out, see what they have to offer. They're one of the top people to hang out with and obviously talk to on podcasts. So check them out for sure.
Thanks so much, Shannon. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again, Jim. Talk to you later. See you guys. See ya.
Picking up the pieces from the start.